Hello, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're gonna wait a couple more minutes for more people to join. Thanks for waiting. In the meantime, while we wait for more people to join, I just want to remind you about the options you have on Zoom. We will be allowing people to speak at some point during the presentation. The way we're going to make this work is going to be by using the raise hand option. So please keep your mic off at all times, unless you raise your hand and we give you a chance to either ask a question or provide a comment if you have. You'll have 3 minutes to do that. If you don't feel like talking, you can also use the chat option if you want to maybe ask a question or just say any comment that you want. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Please remember to keep your mic muted at all times until it's time for you to ask your question after you raise your hand. So I see we have 60 participants so far. I noticed that there were like at least 120 people registered. So in the meantime, while we wait for more people to join, feel free to use the chat option to either say your name, maybe tell your neighbors where you're from or what neighborhood that you're living currently right now. And yeah, so at some point during the presentation, if you just join, you'll have a chance to raise your hand and then we'll allow you to speak. You'll have 3 minutes to speak, either if you want to ask a question or a comment. We'll unmute you for those 3 minutes, just so you know. And you can also use the chat option. Let's see, we have people joining us from Friendship, from Highland Park as well, South Hills, Manchester, East Liberty. Wow, it's a lot of places. Thank you so much for joining us. I see we have more people joining. We'll wait a couple more minutes, maybe until 6:05 if that's all right. So we have a question from Joy. Joy, you should be all right. We have plenty of space for anybody that wants to join. This should be a general summit about neighborways. So we won't be making any specific, talking about any specific neighborway at the time. So yeah, it's just gonna be more like a general conversation about neighborways in general. But thank you for your question. All right, thank you for letting us know where you are in the chat. Welcome.
please start for those of us who were bothered to be here on time.
I know. And again, yeah, thank you all for joining us. I think we can start. Let me just mention the different tools again one more time before we start for whoever just joined us. So again, thank you for joining us for the Neighborway Summit. If you look at your tools on Zoom, if you're new to Zoom, you can use the chat if you want to add any comment. Let us know where you are visiting us from. Where do you currently live? You can raise your hands. Raise your hand if you want to ask a question. And at some point during the presentation, we're going to have a Q&A option. And depending on how many people raise their hand at a time, we'll let one person at a time, just so you know we keep this organized and we allow everybody time to either ask their question or their comment. And you'll have 3 minutes to either ask that question or provide that comment, and then we'll unmute you. But please, in the meantime, keep your mic off. Thank you so much. All right, I think should be good to go.
Well, then I think we should all start with maybe an introduction, just so we know where we are, and to kick off this awesome Neighborways Summit. And I want to just thank everyone for joining us tonight. It's great to have such a great turnout, 74 people so far, which is pretty exciting. I'll start with the DOMI people, and then we'll go on to Ricardo. I am Cassandra Leopold. I am the principal planner in charge of active transportation with the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure.
Great, and my name is Kim Lucas, and I am also with the city's Department of Mobility and Infrastructure, where I serve as the Assistant Director for Planning, Policy, and Permitting.
My name is Paige Anderson, and I work in the Traffic Engineering Bureau at the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure.
Great, I'm Karina Ricks. I'm the Director of the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure.
We have Lisa, right?
Yeah, hi, my name's Alyssa Gogenauer. I'm with BHB, and I'm one of the transportation engineers working on the design of these projects.
Thanks, Alyssa. And we have Anna.
Hello, my name is Anna Tang. I'm the community organizer with Bike Pittsburgh, and I will be looking at the questions tonight.
Great. And my name is Ricardo Solis. I'm the community initiatives manager at Healthy Ride. And me, Healthy Ride and Bike Pittsburgh are helping, we're partnering with DOMI right now with this project. So thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, great. So I think I'll get us started. So I am, as I mentioned, Karina Ricks. I'm the Director of the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure. I think as a caveat for all of us that are on this call is that it's 6 o'clock, which is dinner time at my house. So at some point, I have no doubt in the course of this meeting, there will be chaos happening around me that I have become a Zen-like master at ignoring and pushing on through. So just ignore whatever real life happens behind me. This is a great turnout. Really, really glad that we have 76 people that are here joining us. This is a meeting to talk about Neighborways. Neighborways are a new technique that we're introducing into the city of Pittsburgh. And so this is really it is meant to be a citywide meeting. So this is not project specific. This is really just discussing among a broader group of people what Neighborways are, their purpose, where they fit sort of in the lexicon of different things that the department implements. So I like to start these meetings always with the goals of our department. So the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure really has created these 5 North Stars if you will, that cut across everything that we attempt to do in our department. And they're really there to sort of be the grounding of the purpose that we try to serve for the city and for the stakeholders of our city. Goal 1, first and foremost, is one of safety, that no one our goal is that no one dies traveling on city streets, and really no one should be seriously injured just in the process of trying to get to and fro on the public streets of our city, regardless of the mode of travel that they might choose to do that. So really fundamental safety, that's at the core of what we do, keeping people safe and alive and enjoying our city. Goal 2 is that we believe that all households in our city have the right to access fresh fruits and vegetables within 20 minutes travel of home, and that they do not require a private automobile to do that, that they should be able to get to the grocery store, buy their ice cream, and get home before it melts, and that it doesn't require that one has possession of a private automobile, a driver's license, all of the other kind of hurdles that go along with that. So they can achieve that on foot, by bicycle, by transit, by other modes that may be available to achieve that goal. Goal 3 is that walking, rolling, bicycling are the most joyful mode for short distance trips. We know that over 25% of the trips, vehicle trips that are made in our city, are less than 1 mile in distance. So 25% of those vehicles that you see moving around in the city are likely traveling less than 1 mile. And that's for a number of reasons. It may be certain conditions of that trip that require that, but oftentimes it's because we have an environment that really just doesn't make it easy for those trips to be made by any other mode. So we want to make it not only easy and safe, but we want to make it inviting. We want that to be the mode of choice for those very short distance trips, because that can help meet our environmental goals, that can help reduce congestion, that can help improve safety, that very first goal, by reducing those interactions that may happen between motor vehicles and these more vulnerable users walking, rolling, and biking. Goal 4, no household needs to spend more than 45% of their income on basic housing and basic mobility. Again, we believe that these 2 elements are universal rights to every resident of our city, and they do not need to spend the majority of their income just achieving these fundamental needs of life. So as housing prices go up, or in areas of the city where housing prices are higher, we are obligated and need to work toward providing mobility options that are lower cost, so that net between these 2 chief elements of a household income, that we can keep that below 45%. Pittsburgh is a unique city in that in many neighborhoods and among many of the quintiles of our city, transportation costs exceed housing costs. That's great that housing is so affordable, but that's something that's changing, or was prior to the pandemic. And we really need to keep our eye on that and know that those 2 elements together need to be below 45%. And finally, that Pittsburgh's streets and our rights of way reflect the value of our community. So when we say that we're an inclusive community, when we say we're a neighborly community, when we say that we're a community that embraces all people, we need our streets and our rights of way to reflect that. They most certainly do not. I think many of you in your mind's eye can think of some of our more hostile streets and think that's not really the reflection of the character and values that we as Pittsburghers hold for this city. So these are the goals that no matter what we do, whether we're building a bridge or improving a streetscape or changing our mobility system, these are the goals that I challenge my project managers to come back to and answer. How are we doing in making these investments and being stewards of the public right of way in achieving these sort of 5 fundamental goals that we have for our city. So if you go to the next slide, Ricardo, or can I? Okay. So there's a number of programs that really are expressly focused on, in particular, that very critical first one of safety and access that we focus on. We have our traffic calming program, which has been wildly successful. It's just 2 years old, and we're almost swimming in requests from all across the city of people who really want to see traffic calming on their streets. We have our signal modernization program, which is, again, it is a safety program. It's trying to manage that flow of different modes of traffic, ensuring that there's enough time for pedestrians to cross the street, ensuring that we have a good flow of traffic so that we're not looking at road rage or other kinds of experiences on the street. We have a number of intersection crossing improvements. You've seen them all around the city. This image is just one of them, where we're really working to try and improve accessibility, particularly at intersections, which is where we have those multiple points of conflict. We just launched our Safe Routes to School program, which we're really excited about, so really focusing on those younger students. We do a number of ADA curb upgrades. We have a sidewalk program that we work on. And again, all of we have trail programs, bridge programs, asset management programs, all of them really, again, grounding back into all 5 principles, but first and foremost, that goal of safety and trying to make sure that no one dies on our city streets. Go ahead, Ricardo. Oh, I don't know that I can advance it, thanks. So the Bike Plus plan is one of those things that is really striving toward that goal of safety and access. We know that people travel by a number of different modes in our city streets. So we are about 10 years late in updating our last 10-year bicycle master plan, but this is sort of just been completed earlier this year. It took 5 years of work, lots of engagement, lots of meetings. I hope many of you participated in those, looking at what are those critical connections? How do we meet the goals of ensuring that every household has the means to travel by bicycle or other forms of wheeled mobility within access of their homes, and that they can travel in a connected network to those critical destinations, whether it's retail and groceries or jobs or education or parks, or the many different destinations that our people want to get to. So it took us 5 years. We engaged 150 different people. They provided over 1,500 different comments on it. What we discovered in doing sort of data gathering and research is that at least 1/3 of Pittsburghers have said, while they might not bicycle right now, they would if there was a safe place that they felt safe that they could do that, at least occasionally, again, for some of these short distance trips that we talked about earlier. So the end of the plan was that we identified a connected network accessing these critical destinations that we mentioned of grocery stores and parks and education and employment centers, and identified a linked network of 123 miles of facilities. And just to put that in context, citywide, we have about 1,200 miles of public streets in the city. So the Bike Plus plan is really looking at less than 1/10, well, about 1/10 of those streets, to make those streets, 1 in 10, a place where people on bicycles can feel comfortable and able to travel in our city. And again, I mentioned that the Bike Plus element of the plan is reflecting the fact that there are different kinds of emerging mobility now today that we see out in our city. It might be pedal assist e-bikes, it might be some of the other kinds of mobility devices that certainly, I'm in Squirrel Hill, I've seen nearly every day as I go out walking the dog. So really trying to be perspective of that, understanding what those devices are, and that they do not belong on the sidewalk. The sidewalks are for pedestrians. We want to provide a safe network so that people on these other modes can travel. While they are legal on sidewalks outside of the commercial districts, we would prefer that they have a place in the street to travel. Go ahead to the next slide. So one of the things that's really important is, who are you designing for when we're talking about these streets and talking about the improvements that we're looking at? And we talk about an all ages and all abilities network that the Bike Plus plan is looking at. And what that means is we know that the vast majority of people are not the you know, no offense to the great bicyclists that are on this call, but they're not the spandex wearing, you know, people that are blasting through and you know, bike 22 miles a day in and out of the city to get to their destinations. The vast majority of people fall into this category that are called interested but concerned. They might bike, maybe they do bike, but they likely do it fairly infrequently. And it's because they are trepidatious about what's happening on the street and their comfort level in doing that. And so these are the folks that we're really targeting at. You know, much smaller numbers fall into these categories of somewhat confident, you know, 5 to 9% of the population. That may be where I fall into that. I can do it, but it's all right. And then 4 to 7, which are the highly confident ones. They're the ones that often, you know, may, again, no offense to the bicyclists on the call, may give the bad rap to others in that, you know, they may run a stop sign or two every once in a while. But again, in a proportion of the people that would use bicycles or do use bicycles, the vast majority, again, are down in that interested and concerned. They're cautious riders. They just want the opportunity to be protected and safe should they choose this mode of travel. And of course, you know, you add this all up and you realize that 28 to 40% are not accounted for in this chart. Those are people that are sometimes referred to as the no way, no how. I'm not going to get on a bicycle. Don't ask me to. I'm not interested in it. This is not for me. The answer is this is for you. It is for you because, as I said before, if we can provide safe accommodation for the balance of the population that may occasionally use a bicycle, we can keep them off the sidewalks. The interested but concerned population are the ones who are going to gravitate toward those sidewalks and use those commingling with pedestrians. And so if we can provide a safe place for riders of all ages and abilities to be accommodated, we can actually serve the no way, no how by keeping those pedestrian ways safe and accessible. We can, again, serve the no way, no how by promoting bicycling as a mode of travel for those short distance trips, clearing the way on our roadways for more efficient motor vehicle travel, clearing the way on our roadways for more efficient transit travel. So it really is an approach that benefits all. I'm sorry, I'm going too long. Keep going, Cassandra, or Ricardo, whoever has control. Next slide. But we also are really focused on pedestrians. Pedestrians are the core, the fundamental unit of our transportation network. Pittsburgh has some of the highest commuting rates in the nation of commuting by foot to their jobs. And at the same time, we have far too many pedestrian fatalities. We had over 211 pedestrian fatalities over the past decade. And this is unfortunately in line with national trends. Pedestrian deaths are on the increase. That is the wrong trajectory for where we're trying to go. So they've increased 53% compared to just a 12%. I'm sorry, and they represent 12% of motor vehicle related deaths. So this is again going in the wrong direction. There's reasons for that, the rise in distracted driving, speeding, reckless driving, different kinds of factors, but this is something that we really need to mitigate and provide improved safety for our pedestrians. You can go to the next slide. Trying to just move a little bit quicker for us. And vulnerable pedestrians, again, are even more disproportionately represented. I should mention here too that people of color tend to be overrepresented in pedestrian deaths. People at the lower income quintiles are overrepresented in pedestrian deaths. Why? Because they tend to rely more on walking and transit use than other members of the community. And so we can see, you know, how this goes up with age nationally. So pedestrians that are 50 and older have a relative danger of about 20. At 65, it goes up to 20.7. At 75, 28. So they're far above the average for all pedestrians, which is just 14.8. Children are also disproportionately represented. in those statistics. So 25% of child fatalities in the US are children that are using bicycles or walking. So again, that is too great of a cost for us in our city. That does not reflect the values of our community. And it's something that we really want to attend to. Why does this all matter? Go ahead to the next page. So this matters because traffic calming is one of those strategies that we're really using to preserve life, to preserve safety on our city streets. Speed kills, to be quite blunt about it. As speed goes up, and it is not the crazy high speeds, 85 miles an hour on a highway, that will definitely do great damage to you. But you might be surprised to learn that 40 miles an hour on our city streets has a 77% chance of resulting in death to a pedestrian. 40 miles an hour. Even at 30 miles an hour, there's a 50% chance of death of a pedestrian struck by a vehicle traveling at 30 miles an hour. Our posted speeds in our cities, on our residential streets, are generally 25 miles an hour, and yet the police are not able to enforce those speeds until they exceed 35 miles an hour. 35 miles an hour is well into the death range for pedestrians. So again, what we're really focusing on is managing our streets so that the natural instinct, it's called managing by design, and we're trying to manage the design of our streets so that we can maintain speeds that are in concert with the preservation of human life. And I think that that is something that is really in the value statement of the city of Pittsburgh, that we value human life, all human lives, and we want to make sure that we preserve them. So go ahead one more time. So we have this traffic calming program. It has been very, very well received, very much in demand. The way that our traffic calming program has been implemented over the last 2 years of its life has really been almost on a block by block basis. The only difference, now we get into the neighborways and what neighborways are. What neighborways are traffic calmed streets in sequence. So rather than going block by block, a neighborway is a contiguous traffic calmed corridor. And that's really all it is. A neighborway is not characterized by one intervention or another. And I think Paige will talk about some of the different kinds of interventions that are available to us. A neighborway may use any of a vast number of tools, but the goal of this is to create a traffic calmed corridor where pedestrians, people on bicycles, neighbors in their front yards, anyone else can really have a high quality of life on that corridor, that they can be secure in the safety of that corridor, and that it is one that is in concert with the preservation of human life on those corridors. So that's overall. I think I'm going to stop there. Let's go one more slide to make sure that I'm stopping in the right place. Great. So I think I'm turning it over to Paige to walk through really what are then the components of a neighborway, this contiguous traffic calmed corridor.
Hi there. Yeah, thanks for that introduction, Karina. The three components of the neighborways as we start to design them and develop them, really there are three main categories that can be divided to. So traffic calming is the single biggest, most important one, especially when we are talking about not only comfort and perceived safety, but actual safety in terms of should a crash happen, you are in a better condition than you might otherwise be in without that traffic calming, because the speeds are kept slower. But the other components are also a little more minor. Wayfinding, which is the biggest one of how we connect these neighborways into the larger Bike Plus plan and work on creating that network that, again, Karina said is one in every 10 streets. So how do we connect those streets to make them work well together and connect you to destinations? And then other opportunities to create connections through unique designs that are specific to each neighborway. So Ricardo, if you go to the next slide. As I talked about wayfinding earlier, wayfinding is really just about helping people understand those connections when we're talking about the bigger Bike Plus plan, and the Neighborways fall into that. So the Neighborways have unique signage that looks like this, and we've been getting some input from community members on how we can, what kind of destinations they want to get to and how we can make sure that people are aware and oriented when they're on these Neighborways. And then you also see sharrows on all the Neighborways. Sharrows you'll see on non-Neighborway streets too, and all it does is help to alert cyclists and motorists that this is a shared space, and how we can make it to help encourage good behavior. Next slide, please. So again, the biggest component and probably the most important when it comes to actual safety is, and not just comfort, is traffic calming. So there's 5 tools that you may see throughout the city of Pittsburgh that we've started to look at for traffic calming, and those are bump outs, median refuge islands, diverters, speed humps, and these newer tools, mini traffic circles to Pittsburgh. So speed humps we started doing last year, and those have become, very popular in the city quite quickly. I have a couple examples here. Some of this photo on the left is intervention that DOMI did last year at Lincoln and Frankstown. So you'll see on the left there's a bump out, and on the right there's a median refuge island, which creates a median refuge in the center of the street to help aid pedestrians crossing the street and creates traffic calming. And then this photo on the upper right is something that we do not have in the city of Pittsburgh yet, but may consider in the future, and that's a diverter. So a diverter works to create access for cyclists and reduce speeds by diverting other types of traffic. Next slide, please. So the other tools that we have, again, I mentioned the speed humps. The speed humps we've seen in the city of Pittsburgh have been reducing speeds an average of 3 to 8 miles per hour. So again, in talking about those chances of survivability of a crash, that 3 to 8 miles per hour can make a huge difference in that. But some of these other tools actually have other additional benefits besides just reduction of speed, and so can be sometimes better applicable depending on the intersections that we're looking at and the corridors we're looking at. So we've been piloting mini traffic circles on North Euclid this summer, and those have the FHWA, the Federal Highway Administration, has been said that those reduce speeds by 4 to 6 miles per hour when done in a corridor. They also improve sight lines. So it makes it by helping to make sure that people don't park too close to the corners, which is already considered illegal parking according to PA vehicle code. By helping to make sure that those sight lines are preserved, you're creating more safety because everyone, as they approach these intersections, can see the other users. And you see that also with bump outs. So bump outs, you can be painted or they can be concrete, but what they do is they work to keep people from parking within 20 feet of an intersection, because when people do park there, it creates a really dangerous condition because people are approaching an intersection without being able to see all the other users that are approaching it. Bump outs also decrease crossing distance in addition, just like the median refuge islands. And diverters can also do improve sightlines or decrease crossing distance depending on how they're designed. Next slide, please. And the most exciting component sometimes you may see in some of these neighborways are these unique connections that we've been able to find to create access where it wasn't there before. So I think my favorite of the most recent examples is something DOMI's really proud of, is this ramp all the way on the right. So this is underneath the Birmingham Bridge. It's part of the South Side Neighborway. And it creates, these is between 2 parking lots, and there used to be a fence there. But now we've created access with this ramp and this stairwell so that people can bike and walk underneath the Birmingham Bridge and avoid the intersection at the Birmingham Bridge and Carson Street, which is quite dangerous and intimidating and large. So we've created an opportunity to divert it, to avoid it entirely, and created access along a neighborway closer to the river than Carson Street. There's also contraflow bike lanes work similarly in that they typically take a one-way road, and they create access by making it 2 directions for cyclists, because we can squeeze in a bike lane where we might not be able to squeeze in another motor vehicle lane. So there's a photo on the left of a contraflow bike lane that we installed recently downtown Pittsburgh. And then there's other smaller opportunities and to connect it with larger pedestrian and cyclist networks. So examples of that is a bike rental. This is a new one that was installed on the John Care Steps in Oakland. So taking an existing pedestrian connection, we rebuilt that, you know, that stairway entirely. And in that improvement, we included a rental so people on their bikes could also bring their bikes with them. So these are very unique to every corridor and are fun things when we can find opportunities to create these kinds of access. And that's the end of me talking about Neighborways. So I'm going to let Cassandra talk a little bit about some of the work we've done with stakeholders this summer.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paige. Good evening, everyone. I'll be going over some of our lessons learned and outreach as part of the Neighborways. As Paige has been kind enough to go over each of the components. One of the new tools we introduced with the Neighborways this year was the traffic circles, which you can see here. We learned a lot in this process about installing these traffic circles and received valuable feedback from the public regarding them. Specifically during this time, we heard from residents with disabilities and those also with reduced or low vision. And there were a lot of concerns expressed about engaging with new traffic calming measures, bicyclists, and traffic. I want to take a moment in this Neighborway Summit to really acknowledge the importance of these concerns, as every resident's experience and safety concerns while crossing the street is different. And because of this and the feedback we received, we have made the following changes to the traffic circle designs. Stop signs will remain where they currently were present. There will be the inclusion of high visibility crosswalks with no slip materials so that residents feel comfortable during different weathers crossing. We will be having maintained landscaping and the plantings will not exceed 3 feet. DOMI is also working to create an allowable plantings list that is seasonally appropriate and would maintain the correct height and width, and that would be maintained to make sure that sightlines are preserved. I and the other engineers and planners will also continue to consult with the city's ADA advisor, along with the city county task force on disabilities. So I'll be making a continued effort to reach out to the task force, inform them of updated Neighborway projects, and make sure to hear their comments and concerns. And of course, we will continue to monitor, assess, and report and improve upon these designs. We learned so much, and we are thankful for this opportunity to continue to, have the corridors reflect the needs of the community, but also maintain that level of safety. We keep reflecting back that we want 0 deaths on our streets, and by having these kinds of designs, we enable that to happen. That safety is preserved. The next slide. Thanks. So on top of that, that was just the kind of the initial design response for lessons learned. We also heard from the community just in general at large that we needed to improve communication and increase our level of equitable outreach when we were engaging with the public. And we fully agree. We want to be better in our due diligence. And so we have come up with the current approach. And obviously we will continue to increase and develop it as we go. But we have reached out to the Department of City Planning to now use their public engagement guide method for all of our MoveForwardPGH projects, which includes the Neighborways, so that there's always a visible source of what we are asking the public and what we are putting forth. And for upcoming projects, those will be available to view and download. I will be working with the neighborhood planners for each project and asking for community organization lists and key stakeholders to really reach out to so that everyone is aware of things coming up, that we can lean on the knowledge of the area, and of course help spread that information. No one knows better than the people in the community, and working with those registered community organizations and stakeholders is crucial. And so we want to make sure that we're strengthening those relationships, and by maintaining that relationship with neighborhood planners and registered community organizations, we can do that. We are reworking our public meetings. So not just for tonight's meeting, but all meetings regarding Neighborways or our MoveForwardPGH program will have an opportunity for an open dialogue. We realize that it is important to be able to speak and be heard. Sometimes there's concerns with the amount of numbers of people, so we want to make sure to have that measured, but we value your feedback and we want people to have an opportunity to speak. So that opportunity will occur tonight and moving forward. Last but certainly not least, we are trying to increase our form of, snail mail, equitable reach out. So we have increased our mailer reach. Initially, we just had items on the project scope, and now we're doing a quarter mile within the project so that people are aware. And of course, again, talking to the neighborhood planners so that if there's a need to send out mailers to another organization, they can let us know. We've also developed a city engagement website that you'll be able to leave comments on at any time. You do not have to sign on for a meeting, that you can interact with the map. You do not have to take off work to attend a meeting. We are aware that these are really complicated times, and we wanted to provide several opportunities to give feedback, and that was another way. Next slide. And then last, I want to end on a high note as another means of improved and equitable outreach. We now have these awesome yard signs. If you are a resident who is interested in showing your support for safer streets and increased access, and you're interested in the Neighborways, or you have a Neighborway on your block, you can go to MoveForwardPGH.org to have one. This is also the site where you can learn everything about the Neighborways, ones that are occurring near you, upcoming ones. It's a great one-stop shop for all the information we have, but it's a great way to say that you support walking, biking, and driving together, a true multimodal effort. And it's a great way to say that you believe in safer streets. So this is one of our last outreach efforts that are coming up, and hopefully there'll be more, but this is the first step. And with that, I want to be able to open it up to questions from the group.
Yeah, so thank you so much for that. So again, feel free to use the raise hand option, and then we'll go one by one. You'll have 3 minutes to ask your questions or comment, but before that, I'm gonna hand the mic to Karina for a quick summary before that.
Yeah, great. Again, just wanted, we've had participants kind of coming in over the course of this, so just wanted to do a quick summary. So the purpose of this meeting again was just to talk about Neighborways. They are a new tool in the city of Pittsburgh. So wanted to help to sort of just break them down. What are the elements of it? What goes into that? Again, Neighborways are part of our Bike Plus network. Neighborways are not on every street. Neighborways are similar but somewhat distinct from the traffic calming program, in that traffic calming program is sort of one block, very limited location interventions that happen. Neighborways are contiguous corridors. Neighborways are, there are a very small number, limited number of neighborways that were are designed as part of that overall Bike Plus network in order to really provide that connectivity, linking together existing or planned facilities that may be of a different type. So we may have a neighborway that links to a protected bike lane, or a neighborway that links to an off-street trail. So that's one takeaway for you to have, is that Neighborways are part of that Bike Plus network, and there's a very limited number of them that fill the gaps in the Bike Plus network. And that while we have, many of you are familiar and you came to this meeting because of your experience of the pilot Neighborway that we put out there to familiarize people with that on Euclid. The other takeaway I want you to have is that Neighborways do not equate mini circles. Mini circles are one countermeasure, one intervention that is in the toolbox that may be used on Neighborways. Neighborways may be implemented using a series of other tools that Paige talked about. So for those that were late, just sort of those 2 key points of what a Neighborway is, and what are the tools that we have to implement a Neighborway to achieve that lower speed accessibility for people traveling by all means of travel. So go ahead, Ricardo, handle the Q&A.
All right, thank you so much. So again, yeah, please use the raise hand option. We already have people raising their hands. The first one is a phone number. Somebody used the dialing option. It's a 412-683-8151. So please, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question. Let's go ahead. I wonder if this person is still around, or if they can hear us. Maybe we'll wait. We'll go to the next one. Janet J.
Yes, thank you very much. My question is the question I've been asking for a long time is what are the fire chief's concerns about the roundabouts, traffic circles? I know he has them. You responded to my very recently, Cassandra. However, unfortunately, it was sort of your interpretation of what was best after you heard the fire chief's concerns. You didn't actually state what the fire chief's concerns were, and I'd really like to know what they were. I presume he presented them to you as well as to Wendell Hisrich in some document format, and I'd like to hear his words, or, you know, just tell me what he said, not sort of how you went on to decide what was okay after that.
I received an email that I read information from. So on my end, I was not included directly in the conversation as I am a relatively new project manager. So I would give that question to Director Ricks for the sake of, what I sent you was, you know, that obviously I'll leave it to Director.
Yeah, let's answer it for all. So we did, again, the Neighborway on Euclid was established with temporary materials. So again, for folks who aren't familiar with it, there's some flex posts, there's some paint out there. Those are just meant to be representations of what the interventions might be, but that's not what it is. So we put it out there in part so that we could get real life reactions and experiences to these. We did take out the fire department, including the fire chief, out to there, and they drove their largest vehicle that services that area to see how that would actually work. And the fire department's chief concern, as it is with almost everything that DOMI does, whether it's closing a street due to a landslide or making other interventions in our network, their concern is response time. In the event of a fire, time really matters. And that is their number one concern, is how is this going to affect response time of getting to the fire. Response time is impacted, of course, by a number of different factors. Vehicles parking too close to the corner, with or without any of these countermeasures there, affect response time. Vehicles queued at stop signs or traffic signals affect response time. Closed streets affect response time. Utility cuts and imperfect pavement conditions affect response time. So the chief's concern, Ms. Jai, was response time, and how are these things going to affect our ability to get swiftly to a fire. And so we ran those circles as they're navigating, as they're circumnavigating the full of the circle counterclockwise, as most vehicles need to do. They need to make that turn very slowly. And so their concern was that would adversely impact their response time, as we helped coach them through how to use new devices like this, and advise them that, in fact, when built, these circles will be fully traversable. They have mountable curbs on them, and so large vehicles such as fire trucks can travel over the top of the circles, and that really the best way for large vehicles to handle this is to turn left in front of the circles. That then really does not create any different response time than what they currently experience in the streets. Research has demonstrated, and I don't know if we have the table that we want to show, of research that's been gathered on a number of different kind of traffic calming measures, that many circles that do not have the stop signs associated with them actually can reduce emergency vehicle response time in getting there, because they can they facilitate a slower but smoother movement of other vehicles, so that they can get out of the way of an emergency response vehicle. Stop signs, of course, if there is a vehicle already stopped at a stop sign, that could introduce a little bit of delay, but that already exists at these stop controlled intersections. So the chief's concern was response time. And we have gone over with him the use of these traffic calming devices and presented the research that indicates that actually response times are maintained, if not facilitated, through some of these rationalization devices on the street.
And has he agreed that it will work okay the way you presented?
Well, we don't have real traffic circles implemented yet, and so it's really, you know, it's hard to really make a final conclusion on that. So we have the research and we have the design that would allow that access.
All right, thank you so much. I wonder if that phone number is still around, but if not, we can go with the next person. Saul?
I'm here.
Oh, okay, thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. Okay. My name is Holly Dick. I'm a member of the Committee for Accessible Transportation and a member of the Pittsburgh City Planning Commission. And I'm blind myself, and I have worked much of my life doing advocacy for people with all kinds of disabilities. And I want to commend the department for working on this and coming up with some of these solutions, particularly as a result of the model project on Euclid Street. And I think it's important for them to, everybody in the city to, when you're making plans, to consider the needs of everyone. And I think universal design is the thing that really is most likely to meet almost everyone's need in the city. And I think it's very, very important to include people with disabilities and elderly people and so on in all original planning of these things, so that you don't have to retrofit, but you can look proactively at what their effects may be on people. And I think some of the compromises that were made in the area of trying to make sure that blind people could cross where there were neighborways safely would be to have crosswalks painted with a non-slip paint. So if people who are on utilizing crutches or walkers or things like that would not slip on the crosswalks. And that we have, make sure they're good sight lines so that drivers who come seeing the person try to cross the street would be able to do so despite the plantings and so on in the area. And it's because at these, when you don't have the regular pedestrian activated stoplights with audible crossing signals, it's really important that persons who can't see well to cross the street can listen carefully for traffic and have some idea when it's going to stop, and also to have drivers be able to see the visually impaired person walking. So I think if you can keep in contact with the community of people who have special needs throughout the city, with elderly people, and also consider universal design as much as possible. We'll hope that'll make everything work for everybody in the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. I just wanted to respond to that we will continue having, I was grateful for the feedback from organizations like the Golden Triangle and the Age-Friendly Pittsburgh and Access, and several of the great advocates and trainers with residents who have low vision or no vision who reached out to share their expertise with us. And I will be continuing conversations, like I said, with not only the ADA coordinator, the Disabilities Task Force, but I have begun creating a list based off of our interactions and this updates to the traffic circle, of a list of stakeholders to really reach out to when there is an opportunity for, like you're saying, universal design, age and gender friendly streets. There are things that we can do, and I appreciated the communication and outreach from all the stakeholders and advocates.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I already raised, lower the other person's hand. I believe it was Saul.
Yes, thank you so much. So I'm one of the folks who live at the very end, or the northern end of the newest Neighborway on North Euclid. And first of all, thank you. I like the traffic circles. I'm a big fan. I come from the East Coast where we have lots of them. So it's nice to see them. What we have noticed is while it might slow traffic down at the circle itself, We live on the long stretch where there is no obstacle to slow people down, and people then speed up afterwards to make up the time they lost, make up the time in quotation marks that they lost on the circle. Is there a way of combining some of the methods that you were discussing earlier on, like combining some speed humps along the way? I think it's less of an issue lower down on North Euclid, only because we're close to Bunker Hill, and people don't want to, for some reason, go up North Highland and then make a left on Bunker Hill because it seems longer. Who knows? So that's one. It's just combining some of the methodologies used to slow traffic down a wee bit more. And then the second one is at some of our more busier intersections, providing traffic cameras at those intersections where people have a tendency to see a yellow light, see a red light, and then go through the intersection regardless. Both as a pedestrian and as somebody who travels to work early in the morning, I can't even count anymore the number of times I watch people do that in their automobiles. So just a couple of questions out there. I don't know if those are in the works, if those are possibilities.
I can take this one. Thank you for that feedback, Saul. I wanted to comment on the Euclid pilot circles. So there are 4 of them along the corridor. I think the proposal is, I think it's 7 now. So we kind of spread them out a little bit more because we wanted to try a variety of intersections with a variety of conditions, so we could have better representative data. But these are actually optimally installed as a corridor treatment, right? So we're really hoping, we've been collecting data. We are going to continue to collect data, and especially once we see the entire corridor installed, again, like improved circles that are more representative of the final design. Concrete mountable curb, and then also, you know, having the entire corridor. That being said, we are going to be continuing to collect data after all of this has been done, and of course, if we don't see the results that we're hoping for, we hope that we can, you know, continue to push to make this the safe corridor we're looking for, all ages and abilities.
So is that data being collected at different points along the corridor, not just at the traffic circles? So for, you know, I've noticed I walk around the neighborhood all the time. So I've noticed the monitors at the different circles are usually right at the intersections, but I don't see them in the middle of some of the longer blocks, like between Callow Hill and Bunker Hill, or between Hampton and going south, you know, so.
Yeah, well, I'll say, but I think what you're seeing is the ones that right at the corners, those are actually cameras. So those were us like trying to see how people behavior in the street. Those weren't actually our radar detectors. Our radar detectors are just little metal boxes. They look very different, and they just collect volume and speed data. And those we have been putting mid-block. So we're trying to find, you know, the speeds. Sometimes we'll put them closer to the intersection to get the speeds around the intersection, but we'll also put them mid-block to get something more representative of a corridor treatment.
Thank you so much. We have 4 more people.
Can I answer a quick, there was the question about speed or traffic cameras too. That just wanted to make sure that we answered that one. Especially like myself, some folks that come to Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania from elsewhere. Just quick thing, traffic cameras for enforcement are not actually allowed in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania at this time. So that's not a tool that's available to us. So, you know, putting that out there if anyone wants to educate their elected officials at the State House about permitting that as an option.
Thank you. Let me see who's next. And also as a reminder, it's almost 7. Let's see if we can go with all these raised hands. And then we had Christine, I believe, that had a raised hand, but I don't see the hand anymore. I wonder if they lower it. But we come up to the next one, and then if that person raises hand. So we can go with Mary.
Hi. So I don't have a question. I just had a comment about the traffic circles. I'm new to living into such a dense neighborhood. I live in Garfield now. And one thing that's been driving me insane as a pedestrian, biker, car is entering intersections and not knowing which ones have stop signs, and like having to look all the way down 3 long roads and trying to see with like all these parked cars if there's somebody coming. So with that being said, I've been loving the traffic circles. It just like really helps me know where I need to look, and there's just like a consistent flow of traffic, and I feel a lot safer and happier with them. And as an example of this pain point that I've had in other places, like I recently was biking, I thought that it was a 4-way stop sign situation, but it wasn't. And a car came and it didn't get that close to hitting me, but it like had to slow down and like I got sworn at. So I just wanted to sort of express my love of the traffic circles and my interaction with them thus far. So thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Mary, if you want to get a yard sign, I think you might be a great candidate for stopping by the MoveForwardPGH.org, because that's a great response, and we appreciate that the traffic calming is working for you, and that you can feel the difference. So that's exactly what we're hoping for.
That's awesome. Thank you. We have Seth Davies.
So thank you. I know I'm not in the city, but I've been part of a new group called South Hills Safe Streets that has membership across city borders, and we're in our infancy, so I'm trying to understand a little bit better. I've been on the Planning Commission in Dormont. I'm now living in Mount Lebanon, and as some may know, Mount Lebanon recently put in the last couple of years an ordinance against jaywalking and really pushing against some of these pedestrian improvements. So I was more here as a fact-finding mission, but also hoping there's some level of coordination we might be able to do with the city, since the Bike Plus plan identified those future corridors on West Liberty Avenue and Beachview, or Broadway Avenue and Beachview, and West Liberty Avenue is a major corridor, as well as Brookline. So just really want to work with it and give kudos to DOMI for what's happened, what seems like it's happened very rapidly, and I'm really excited about it. I've been working with Anna Tang as part of the South Hills Safe Streets group. So we've got a lot of membership, and we're new to the world within COVID. I think we started basically within COVID. So looking forward to future coordination and anything we can do to kind of help expand these networks and really connect the networks into the city. So that's all I really have.
That's great. I'm happy to share my coordination. Sounds wonderful, as we have projects that obviously, like you're saying, spans through our connectivity spans through both of the cities and areas. And so if there is anything we can maybe coordinate through Anna, and I'd love to be able to, work on whatever we can to build out more corridors, more safe streets, and hear what you're doing, because I think it's always good for, different planners to talk and see what we can do to increase safety and ridership and walking.
Thank you. Yeah, we have 2 more raised hands. I know we're past the time, but maybe we can go through these 2. We have next person, Mr. MC O'Neill.
Is.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. So, as I said in the chat, I appreciate, first of all, that DOMI is trying to communicate better. That's very much appreciated. And I am not anti-mini circle or a neighborway. I think that making the city safer for bikers and pedestrians and drivers is a really valuable thing. But I am troubled by a one-size-fits-all approach. I want to know if all the specifics of a specific location are taken into consideration. I mean, Euclid is a kind of long street, and it goes through a variety of neighborhoods with variety of streets like East Liberty Boulevard. And then there's Callawhill, and they're not equal. So, I mean, that's my issue.
And that's a fair, and I respect that is a concern, and I agree. I wouldn't like a one-stop shop, one-size-fits-all approach either. I can answer part of this and then also hand it over to our engineers to give kind of a more succinct response. But I can say on our end as planners, there is absolutely, you have to be context sensitive for what you're doing for any kind of traffic calming. So we do neighborhood research. We look at comprehensive plans. We ask the engineers to look at crash analyses for each intersection that would be included. We couldn't possibly ask, exactly like you're saying, if one intersection has heavy traffic flow, then we're certainly not going to give the same traffic calming treatment as one that maybe is low stress, low use. We have to really look at the history of what is happening on the corridor, look who's living around the corridor, and really take that into account. Say, are destinations close, schools? Is there someone who has accessible parking near an intersection like that? We have to take that into consideration. We do crash analysis, and then we do a lot of evaluating and monitoring even after we've come up with an initial design or plan. But definitely it is not a one Neighborway fits it all. And I think that's part of the reason we wanted to have this kind of presentation, was to talk about all the tools in the toolkit, because not everything can possibly be answered with a traffic circle or a speed hump. And so it takes a great deal of research to determine initial designs, and then we modify those designs based off of feedback from the community, and then also what we discover in our initial research. And I'll leave that also open to Paige or Alyssa to kind of go into more detail about those approaches.
Yeah, so I can elaborate a little bit more on Paige. If I forget anything, please feel free to jump in. But Cassandra, you did a great job at explaining that we do take all of those aspects into consideration when we're looking at design. Some of these treatments, as we had mentioned earlier, are more effective when they're installed throughout the corridor. Other ones are just as effective if you just install one. But we also, definitely take into consideration, the user needs, the different types of, land use, roadway dimensions, vehicle needs, all of that whenever we're going through this. It's also in part, I think, why you all have, maybe noticed on some of the public meetings that we've kind of gone through and tweaked some of the process as we are doing our analysis of this, because we do test things out as we're going and figure out what's working before it's actually installed. And so, that is definitely all part of the process.
Thank you. We also have the last one, Bruce.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bruce Chan, and I am chair of Bloomfield Livable Streets. And we are super, super excited to get a Neighborway on Comrie Way, which will connect us safer to Lawrenceville and to Friendship and to East Liberty and Garfield via Comrie and Coral instead of Penn Avenue. So we're super excited about that. Obviously, I'm a supporter of the Neighborway, and this is more of a comment and less of a question. Just to let you know that there are lots of supporters. However, I think it was very clear at the beginning of this process that those supporters might not have known about this project, and so weren't able to come out and speak for it. And so because of that, some of the outreach, I think, issues we had came up, and that's why I'm really happy that one of the slides that Cassandra pointed out to, kind of humbly, it sounds like, showing that DOMI knew that and recognizes that there were issues with outreach. So I'm really happy that there are now lessons learned. Some of the lessons that I learned through this process, and I hope that's something that maybe DOMI and other communities can also speak to, is that one, if you do the right amount of research, you'll learn that there are lots of supporters, if only they knew. And two, with the good amount of outreach, these supporters can be partners at the very beginning, and these partners can help get the word out, can help educate, can help show some of our neighbors who might not have technology, who might not know about these traffic calming principles that are used around America, that are used in other cities similar size to Pittsburgh, that we as either bike pedestrian committees, either as safe routes to schools proponents and advocates, we can help DOMI ushered forward a lot of these neighborways, which we all know work and want to see in our own communities. And the last thing is that with this improved outreach, hopefully there will be more equity in making sure that all members of our neighbors know about those and have a good say and have an equal say in how these will impact their lives, so that we can improve these neighborways to fit every neighborhood and to fit the life and the spirit that our neighborhood wants to express. And with that, I just want to once again just say that we are in support, and hopefully that DOMI will start reaching out to these supporters when they start to roll out these neighborways, so that we can actually be partners and help you accomplish the goals of the city. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this and just to, I agree that definitely reaching out to the community organizations like Bloomfield Livable Streets and any of the other and Bloomfield Development Corps, that you know, each neighborhood has these great stakeholders, investors, and also this level of outreach. That we will be continuing using these community assets to help us, especially for 2021 projects, to really be our aids in reaching the community. And we are still finding new ways to have improved communication. So we're looking into more equitable options and may turn to you guys for recommendations, assistance, volunteer opportunities to get things distributed. But we're definitely looking into the power of the community to get the word out more on top of what we're doing. So definitely a great lesson to learn, and glad that we have the Neighborways projects to really implement this through. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. I know some people also joined late. I just want to let you know that this meeting is being recorded and it's going to be shared with whatever email address you share when you register. So you'll be able to see it. You'll be able to share it with your neighbors if they also missed it. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone, for attending. So glad you could come.
Thank you.
Have a good night.